Hello guys and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be bringing back my recent reads. It's what, halfway through the year? It's actually exactly like halfway through the year and I'm finally doing a recent read. Guys, life has been chaotic. Like, you guys been going through it. So I'm going to do some recent reads. I'm going to talk about 3 books in total, which is probably good for me because then it means I won't ramble on for too long. But also because a lot of the other books that I've been reading or listening to I've spoken about in some way, shape or form already. And because a lot of them have just been audiobooks and they have been the Miss Marple or Poirot series by Agatha Christie. So let's dive into the first book, which is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I've seen so many people talking about this and I think this paperback only just came out in the beginning of June, I want to say, around that time. I actually managed to order this through work and get a nice little discount, which was nice. And the reason why I actually picked this up, so despite the fact that I'd seen it around, I was a bit like, don't know if I'm going to pick it up. But I am part of a group on Goodreads, which I think I've like engaged with once, about like one book that I read for it. Which obviously has like a monthly book club, and this is one of the books that was on there, and I was just looking over the discussion points that some people, well the discussion and the comments that people were writing about this, and I didn't realise some of the themes it had. It didn't actually feature the themes so heavily when I actually read it, but I'm so glad I read this because I actually thought this was really lovely. So 7 Days in June is about Eva Mercy, who is an author. I love meta books. She's an author of a series, I think it's called Cursed or something like that, which is a vampire series which featured black characters. And essentially she has written herself and someone from very long ago in her life. Her book is like a super huge bestseller. It's got loads of like followers and stuff like that. And she is on a deadline for her final book, which she cannot write. Well, I say her final book, like the next installment of that book, which she cannot write. And she attends an event where a guy named Shane, his name is Shane Hall, they meet at a literary event in New York and it says Sparks Fly. Essentially he comes to this event and she's on a panel and people see him and they're like, oh my god, Shane, like he's just really elusive and people never see him. So they invite him onto it and then it just seems like there's a lot of chemistry between them. And so what follows is like sort of the next 7 days of their life. And you find out that these two knew each other when they were younger, and that's not a spoiler, it's literally in the blurb. And so you're sort of going between them when they were about 15, I want to say, like how they met, what their sort of week together was like. But you're also finding out about Eva's life and her, like what it was like for her growing up, and you find out a little bit about Shane as well, but a lot of it is from the perspective of Eva. So you find out about her mum, and you also get to find out about her chronic illness, and it's a very lovely book. It's a romance novel, 100%, and what I really liked about this is the romance, for me at least, came a lot later in the book, and there was a lot of time to develop the plot. We got to know Eva, we got to know her daughter, we got to know her when she was younger, we got to know her mother, we got to know about her illness. Like, it just really felt like she was a really fully developed character. And then we also had a romance element, and for me that was just the perfect blend. And of course, like, things can't be normal for Shane and Eva. There's a lot of unpacking of their past to do, especially what happened during that week that they were together, and sort of like how things are now for the both of them. Like, life has changed considerably, and yeah, it's about them untangling that, but obviously like being romantic with each other and figuring out if this is something that they can do in the future. So I won't spoil any of that for you. I enjoyed this book, but this book also very much felt like it was packed full of pop culture. Like, I found myself like just tabbing so many bits because I found them hilarious, but it was just a bit like, sometimes I was a bit like, it felt like it was just smushed in. I was like, I don't know who actually speaks like that, but that made the book really comical. The book felt really light, it felt really witty, but I also was just very hyper aware that I don't think anyone actually speaks like that. Maybe they do, I'm just in the wrong circles, so I don't know. For example, Eva says in this bit, "That's my mum," said Eva, nodding. "Anyway, she wasn't trained for anything beyond winning pageants. She got all the way to Miss Universe in 1987 but was disqualified." "On some Vanessa Williams shit," said Shane. And that just made me laugh because if you know who Vanessa Williams is, she is, in Ugly Betty, she's Wilhelmina. And if you know about her, she got disqualified from a pageant, not because she was pregnant, but for something else. So I just found that funny, like, because it's like very much a cultural reference, and if you know, you know, if you don't, you don't. And I think the book was just littered with a lot of that, which I just really love. There's also one really funny bit in here where Shane and Eva go to this like sort of art exhibition. It's not really an art exhibition. It's a place where they can like essentially sleep and chill. And Shane makes this really funny comment. I don't know if he says it out loud or if he says it in his head. And he's just like, this stuff is so foreign to him. Like, he's just like so hood that this is the kind of place where he would just go in and rob all the people. Like, it just, he wouldn't ever go there for the purpose of what they intend them to do. This is a place he would use to rob people. And I just thought that is so funny. But he's talking about it from a perspective of growth. He's like, for him, that's how much he's grown, that he's not gonna, like, he didn't rob these people. And I just found that hilarious. So there were just like loads of moments in there. There was like, Eva's editor or something like that, who's clearly very chic and like knows all the right people, and she throws a party, and it's like you get to hear snippets of the conversation that people are having, and it's just so overdone. It's obviously meant to be exaggerated, and it is funny, but there are parts where the actual characters are talking that I'm like, I don't know that anyone speaks like this. But honestly, I did really enjoy this overall, and like I said, the romance element was a perfect blend for me. There is like steamy sex scenes in here. I found them okay. I always find sex scenes kind of okay. Like, I don't cringe at them, but I'm also just a bit like, they're always written, I don't know, I feel like they're always written in the same way. Obviously people do try and differentiate and things like that, but at the end of the day, you're talking about people having sex, and yeah, for me it's always just the same. So I really did enjoy this, and I'm glad I got to read it, and I ended up giving this 3 stars. And I might check out her other book, I'm not too sure, but yeah. The next book that I read quite recently is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I do not know who Richard Osmond is. As in, I've seen his picture, and then when we picked this up in the charity shop, because we were going on holiday and I just really wanted something light to read, my boyfriend was like, oh, isn't he like that TV presenter? He might be. I don't know. But I feel like when he said that, I was like, this makes a lot of sense as to why I've seen so much hype about this book in his second book. He's obviously got the credentials already. I'm very bad with TV personalities. Like, I'm bad with TV personalities and movies because I don't watch a lot of TV. I haven't seen a lot of films, especially when I was younger. Haven't seen a lot of films. I think, maybe I've said this before, but the first time I saw The Lion King was on stage and I was like 21. And then maybe a few months later I actually watched the film. So when we're saying I haven't seen any films, I really mean I haven't seen any films, and I really don't know TV personalities. So, The Thursday Murder Club, I've seen loads of people talk about it, and as I'm really moving into the crime detective fiction. Like, once I finish the Miss Marples, I'm going to be diving into some more contemporary stuff. So I was like, let me give this a read because it sounds cute. So The Thursday Murder Club are 4 people who live in a retirement village. One of their names is Joyce, I think one of their names is Elizabeth, one of their names is Ibrahim, and I want to say Ron. That's me being, like, just pulling out from the depths of my mind. I hope that is right. Oh my god, it says on the back here. Okay, I'm completely right. That is them. So yeah, they live in a retirement village and they meet up once a week to investigate unsolved murders, because one of the original members, who is now, I think she has dementia, she used to be a police person, and I was going to say woman, not like that is offensive, but yeah, she worked in the police, and she used to bring unsolved murders to the group, obviously once she retired and stuff like that, but now this group has taken over. And yeah, that's initially what they meet to discuss, but then a murder actually takes place in their retirement village. Well, not in their retirement village, the initial murder doesn't take place in the retirement village, but it's someone they know, someone they always see around, so they decide to investigate this murder. And it's just really cute. You have all their little backgrounds of the things that they used to do in the past. So Joyce used to be a nurse, I believe. I'm not sure about Elizabeth. Ibrahim was a psychologist, and Ron, I think he was very much like a union leader kind of person, I'm going to say. So he says, yeah, they might be pushing 80, but they still have a few tricks up their sleeve. And Joyce keeps a diary, so a lot of it is just told in third person, but Joyce also keeps a diary, so we get that first person perspective, and we get to find out about like her inner thoughts and like kind of like what life is like for her. I do wonder in the second one if we'll still have Joyce's diary, or if it will be from the perspective of one of the other characters. I have a feeling it might be from the perspective of Elizabeth, just because I've read the first chapter of the other one, because it was in the back of this book. But back to this one. A guy named Tony Curran is killed. I think it's Tony Curran, it really doesn't matter who it was. And the 4 of them decided they are going to pursue this murder. They enlist the help of a DC that they meet, who has come to tell them about like IT security, and they're just like, we know all these things. they cleverly plot to get her on the case and then use her as their sort of source of information. And subsequently what happens in all these sort of murder stories is obviously not just one person dies, another person dies, and perhaps another person dies, and another person dies. So we're just using all the sort of deaths to uncover what is happening. The overarching story about this is about a guy named Ian who is building a new sort of development next to the retirement village that they live in. He is in partnership with a guy named Tony Curran. He fires Tony Curran, and then the next day, or even that same day, Tony Curran is found dead. And then there is like a priest who sort of objects to them doing this retirement village. He doesn't want them to disturb all the nuns that have been buried in the area. And yeah, there's loads of different stories, but it's essentially about property, real estate, and wanting to develop and get more money. So a lot of the reason why these people are being killed is because people are being cut out of contracts, and yeah, people are just trying to make more money. So there is loads of little side plots going on. There's this thing with the priest where you're just like, why is this priest like so connected to this graveyard and all of this stuff, and you know, wanting it to not be dug up. And then there's obviously the case that they're trying to develop. So that's meant to be the overarching story really, but then there are just like miniature side plots, I suppose. You find out more about the police inspector, like what her life is like, what the sort of her boss Chris is like. You find out just more about the individual characters and what the things they used to do before, but also how what they used to do before helps them get information for this crime and murder, because they're able to enlist help from loads of different sources. It's really hard with detective books because you don't want to say any more to actually ruin the story, and if I do say any more it will ruin the story. But this was really enjoyable. It was really easy to read, really easy to get through. It was funny in some parts because like they're older and they're very aware that people try and treat them as if they're stupid. So sometimes they play up to that, other times they're just like, yeah, we're not dumb. So it's really funny in some parts. And I do think, like, I don't know if I would say it's well written, it's just not badly written, it's really easy to get through, and it's enjoyable. Like, I really want to find out, I want to get the next book so I can find out the crime that they're investigating next, because that sounds of good interest. But yeah, if you're looking for something easy to read and you want some contemporary detective stories, I would go with this. Like, poor old people investigating murder is fun. I don't know how, but it's fun. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Vladimir by Julia May-Jones, and this is one I read very, very, very recently. I gave this 2 stars, and I actually read this for a book club that I've recently joined. I've seen it around for a while, and I was just like, oh, like, yeah, I'm going to make the effort to attend this time. And yeah, so this was a book that was picked, and I had to read it in like 5 days because I realised like I'd just forgotten to read the book despite having like a month to do so. And I thought it sounded very interesting because it actually sounded like the kind of book that I would normally pick up myself. So I was like, oh great. I was reading it and I was like, this book is why loads of people hate literary fiction, because it's just about like white middle class women who are just like, I don't know what to do with my life. But I'll read the blurb and then I'll talk about the plot because, yes, I have thoughts. So it says here, and so when I was a child I loved old men and I could also tell they loved me. And so we are introduced to our deliciously incisive narrator, a popular English professor whose charismatic husband at the same small liberal arts college is under investigation for his inappropriate relationships with his former students. The couple have had a long mutual understanding when it comes to their extramarital pursuits, but with these new allegations life becomes far less comfortable for them both. And when our narrator becomes increasingly infatuated with Vladimir, a celebrated married young novelist who's arrived on campus, their tinderbox world becomes dangerously close to exploding. And then, yeah, it says, with this bold, edgy novel, she takes us into charged territory where boundaries of morality bump against the impulses of the human heart. Guys, I was reading this book and I was like, this is so boring. What is happening here? So, obviously, we're introduced to our main character. She does not have a name. We never find out what her name is. Everyone else has a name. And so, of course, like it says in the back, her husband is facing all these allegations of former students that he had slept with. And, you know, people keep sort of bringing it up to her, and she's always just like, we've had this arrangement in our marriage, and also she's always pressing the fact that it was consensual. Like, you know, he never raped any of these students, he never sexually assaulted any of them. So she's just a bit like, I don't see what the problem is. Like, she does this whole long monologue and speeches throughout the book, you know, where she's just like, you know, women decide that they want freedom and like sexual freedom, and then, you know, things like this happen, and then they turn around and just be like, actually no, you were taking advantage of me because you were in a senior position. And it's just like, but don't women want power and all these sorts of things? And I was just a bit like, well, okay. But what a lot of those speeches and thoughts felt like to me, they very much to me felt like they were coming from the author. Now, I don't know that for sure because I don't know anything about the author, But a lot of it just didn't feel like it was coming from the mouth of the character, and that's what I really struggled with a lot of this book. I felt like I was reading an opinion piece, and it made me think of Olive by Emma Gannon, where I don't know if it should have just been a non-fiction, it should have just been an essay, but again, I don't know the author enough to say that. So those are some of our thoughts about author, and then of course this guy Vladimir comes along, he's a professor, and I guess she becomes infatuated by him. Personally, I didn't feel that. It just felt that she, like, obviously she fancied him, and then, like, she went on about her life, and then there's this whole other subsection where you just be like, whoa. So this book just mulled through some really boring things. I was just sat here like, when did it get exciting? And when it got exciting, I literally had to flip back to another page because I was like, have I missed something? How have we gone from A to Z already? Like, wild. So our unnamed character is basically mulling about her college, talking about her classes, talking about the work that she does, talking about the book that she wrote in the past, her 2 books, and how one was a success and one wasn't a success. And then her and her husband invite Vladimir and Vladimir's wife and child over to their house because they have a swimming pool, and it's like, yeah, come over and swim. Vladimir's wife doesn't end up coming, so he comes with himself and his daughter Phoebe. And they have a really nice night, and there's some really nice food writing in this where she's talking about the food that she's making, where she goes to buy the food and all of that, and I really, really love those bits. And yeah, they have a night, and I guess in some ways the night was like electrically charged, you know, like, but her husband was there, so the flirting that was going on was quite minimal. And then there's a time I think when she does go out for a drink with Vladimir, and they set a date to like meet again, and he sets it very far in the future, in October, but bear in mind I don't even know what month it is in that book, and it also happens to be the day of her husband's hearing. So we just sort of mull about for months, really, doing absolutely nothing, I would say, just spending time with our main character while she talks about like how she keeps skinny because she fears like being fat will drive her husband away, and one of the driving factors of the sort of extramarital affairs with her husband was actually driven by her, and it feels like she just drove it because she basically didn't want to get to the point where he rejected her and started having these affairs, so she rejected herself first, or rejected him first, and gave him that permission so that she could, I guess, be in control of that situation. So she's very much recounting, you know, how she doesn't want to be fat and how controlled she is about that. She talks a little bit about her mum and her upbringing and things like that. Oh, it's so boring, I'm not going to lie. And then, yeah, we get to the day of the hearing. You get to the day of the hearing and the wildest shit happens. Like, it's the kind of thing that I can't even tell you because it spoils the book. But honestly, you're reading it and I'm just like, maybe there were some indications towards it, but I was like, I did not see this coming, and I don't know why we're here now. Like, this is wild. I literally don't know why we're here. I don't know how this middle-class woman with her daughter, because she does have one daughter, like an older lady, I think her daughter's about 29 or something, has completely flipped the script and is doing the wildest thing. Like, I did not expect it. I was like, does she even have it in her? More power to her. And that basically, those events unfold the rest of the book, and it's weird, I'm not gonna lie. It's very weird. Not weird in the sense of like being a prude or anything like that. I didn't really get the imagery or the metaphors that I was supposed to get from it. I just found it all very like, okay, you needed to put some oomph into the book, you've done it, but none of this really makes sense. And it just felt, when we came to the end of the book, we came full circle. There was no great, actually I don't want to say anything because then that will spoil it, but there was no great resolve, no great change. We very much beginning and ending with the same woman in the same situation, with a little bit of drama that's happened in her life, and perhaps just great that she didn't go to prison, in all honesty, is all I can say for her. So yeah, it was a book that I just found okay. But yes, like I said, it's the kind of book that I feel like when people read and they're just like, this is what literary fiction is about, this is dead boring, and I'm like, yeah, this does make literary fiction sound fucking boring, because that's what it is. The book, not the genre. So that wraps up some recent books that I read. I am currently reading Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. I think I've been reading this for like over a month and a bit now. It has been taking me a while. I think it's about 600 pages or something like that. I am really enjoying it, but I won't say too much about it here just because, well, I've not finished it. But it's about a guy named Michael Smith who is a man from Mars. He is human but was raised on Mars, and now they somehow have like managed to bring him back to Earth, and it's just about that exploration. Is, you know, is he a Martian? Is he an Earth person? And then all the sort of understanding of what life is like on his planet, but also him understanding Earth, is very, very interesting. I'm not going to lie, it's very much a book that you read and sort of think about all the different parts of it, which I like. I like the little challenge of that. But yeah, that is for all for my recent reads. I don't know what number this is, I'm just going to keep on continuing doing them. But that is all for this month's recent reads. Thank you so much for watching. If you have read any of these books, please let me know in the comments because I'd love to talk about them. I'll catch you in another video. Bye!